Big tanks, big valves, drain them. They're safe after they're drained. So all you really need to do is, last thing you do after you winterize, dump the holding tanks. This is what's called toilet seal lubricant and conditioner. It's good for valves and it's good for the toilet. So you can add some of this. So the last thing when you're winterizing, if you dump some of this down the toilet, and then once you've dumped it down the toilet and you've flushed everything, pour a little in at the end and let it sit in that toilet. That'll keep that valve lubricated, the seal that the toilet ball valve opens and closes. And also it'll go down into the holding tank, and then when you drain the holding tanks, a little bit of that will be left in there, and that keeps the whole handle, the rubber seals of that blade valve lubricated also. So it's not a bad idea to put a little lubricant down there. Antifreeze actually is a good lubricant itself also, so just doing antifreeze helps.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. If you have cable actuated dump valves, meaning the handle is not attached right at the valve itself, they're in a compartment, something like that. Your fifth wheel probably has valves that the handles are away from the valves. When you pull them out, spray a little lubricant on the shaft and then work them in and out a couple of times. If you can get to the valves themselves, it's not bad to get a little lubricant into the drain port itself to the valves to lubricate them. The cables tend to like to seize up a little bit on you from city, and they get stiff. So just pay attention to that.
And that's just for the inside the toilet, not down in the tank.
Well, it'll go down the tank, and it'll actually help the drain valves down below too. So you'll pour it in the toilet, and then you'll dump some down through the toilet.
And then fill the toilet up at the end.
Yeah, and then pour a little bit more in and just leave it sit. So this will condition.
Drying out.
Yeah, exactly.
If they dry out,
They'll
they'll
rot,
leak.
right?
Yeah, they
can
basically
rot,
are rot
too.
and crack, and like I said, the antifreeze is a pretty good lubricant itself, but this is a little bit
Additional.
better for that. Generators, anyone with a generator? Yes? Okay, generators.
Build in.
Carburetors on generators are not serviceable anymore. They have locked off all the ports and everything. So years ago we used to rebuild carburetors on them, because when they sit over the winter time, the gas dries out, bumps the jets and things in them. So pretty much in the spring, if that happens to you, we put a new carburetor on your generator. The things you want to do, the easiest thing to do is run it. Every couple weeks, run the generator. Anyone here that has a motorhome, every couple weeks, run the engine. Run it down the road. Use the brakes. Move everything so they don't rust and seize and give you problems in the spring. Your car you drive every day, the battery stays well charged, the brakes stay free and moving, and the trans and the engine, because you drive it all the time. That's good for it. If you let these things sit, they just build corrosion and rust on them. And then when they try to move, brakes try to move through the rust, they get sticky and then they drag and they give you problems and things. So the more you do during the winter as far as using the coaches, run the generator or so on, the better off you are.
Turn everything on and it works.
Yep, let it all work. Batteries, let the batteries charge up, let everything go. So it's a good thing to do that. You can put gas stabilizer in motorhomes and then run the engine and run the generator to get through into all that. The new fuels nowadays tend to love to eat up stuff, so stable will help with that. It'll help with the carburetors coming up in certain things. There are what's called slip rings in a generator that'll get corroded and then you'll stop producing power. So there's a lot of advantages of just running this stuff.
So you're saying we should just camp all winter, right?
There you go. Use it all winter.
Shouldn't you keep it filled with gas too?
That was the other.
They say keep gasoline tanks full.
Yeah.
Because then there's no room for moisture and rust.
okay.
Because that's really your key thing, is that an empty tank will absorb moisture, and a lot of fuel nowadays has alcohol in it. Alcohol, it just absorbs moisture like crazy. So alcohol is terrible for fuel because it pulls moisture in, and then you do get some rust and things in your fuel tanks. So if they're full, they can't do that. So yes,
we have to go
filling
camping
a
every
fuel
couple
tank
weeks.
for storage is a good thing. The stable will help stabilize the fuel for the winter time, so in the spring, if you haven't run it or whatever, the gas is still fresh and functioning. But run things. Batteries on travel trailers, either disconnect the negative lead on the battery in the fall once you're done, leave it plugged in, let that battery charge up, disconnect the negative cable, or take that battery out and put it inside and keep it out inside as far as storage wise.
Is it better to do that?
Yes. A battery, if it has voltage in it, will not freeze. If a battery goes dead, then it will freeze. Because the acid basically separates from the water, and now you have water, and it will freeze and break that battery if it goes dead. So keeping that battery charged or keeping it inside and charged is the best thing to do.
If you let your trailer plugged in, will that converter overcharge the battery?
If you leave it plugged in all the time, it can stress that battery. I would suggest, if you're available to plugging in, doing it on plug it in for a couple days and then unplug it for a week, and then plug it in for a couple days. Let it cycle. Or if you have an on-off switch, shut this on-off switch on and off and cycle it. Just leaving things plugged in constantly, their trickle, even though the new converters do cut down voltage very good, they still can trickle enough that it can boil them. Motorhomes and things like that with the 6-volt batteries, you do need to keep an eye on the water levels of them. A lot of the 12-volt batteries, you really don't, they're maintenance free. But a lot of the motorhomes that have 6-volt batteries, they are not maintenance free, and keep an eye on the water level on them. They do use water. So keeping them topped off, especially for storage and things like that, is a good thing to keep.
Inverters are pretty good though for not overcharging though too, but you gotta keep an eye on the water.
Yes, yes.
What about the hydraulics? Should they be left down? Or should they go
No, well, it matters what
I
it
have a
is.
self-leveling.
Fifth wheel or a travel trailer?
No, I have a Heartland Sunday.
Okay. If you have a leveling system,
Yeah, I do.
then I would keep that retracted
Okay.
for the winter. Now, a fifth wheel with front landing gear, you can't retract,
Yeah,
so
but
they're
the other one
down.
I can.
But
So
the
take
rear
them up.
ones, bring them up. Motorhome, same thing. Bring them up because they are chrome cylinders that extend, and if they sit for a long period of time and dry out and build any rust on them, when you do retract them, the rust goes through all the seals and it tears them up. So leveling systems, keep them retracted. Tires, as far as parking and storage of a travel trailer or a motorhome, anything, try not to leave it sit in dirt or wet, damp conditions. That'll actually pull the oils out of the tires and they'll dry rot. We replace tires way more often for dry rot than we ever do for winter.
What's the best way to make sure they don't dry out?
Get them up on, if it's not on a driveway, tarmac, concrete, anything like that, drive it up on boards, on wood. And then also, if you can cover them, if they're in direct sunlight, then cover, they have as simple as tire covers that you can put on tires. If you cover tires so they're not in direct that'll also save them from dry rotting. It's very obvious when we get a trade-in what direction it was sitting in the sun, because one side the tires are dry rotted and the other side they're fine. So yeah, so dry rot on tires is one of the biggest things. You're going to replace your
And
tires
that's another reason
on that.
for driving it several times, once a month or something, 20, 30, 40 miles, is the flexion of the tires. It keeps them from, most of the RV tires have something in to help fight the ultraviolet, but you gotta keep running them.
Yeah, you got to circulate it, move the tire around, flex the rubber, and so on. So yeah, movement is great for them. So tires, just keep them off the dirt, off the grounds, really damp areas. That's really what draws the oils out of them.
I have a question. I want to go back to the lift system. Should you actually use it at all, move it up and down at all during the winter?
You can cycle your lift system, and that's good for it.
Yeah,
So occasionally level the coach,
Once in a while,
cycle
yeah.
it, let that pump motor run, let the lift system function. Yeah, the more you go in and And I realistically, if I tell you every 2 weeks and you do it once a month, that would be great. But go in that coach and basically play with it. Go around, turn things on, cycle things, get it fully functional and going. It's good for it. Anything that is mechanical needs to
Right,
move
right.
occasionally.
Right.
So generators, like I said, starting up, driving it, things like that. Travel trailers, realistically, it wouldn't be a bad idea to tow it around and function the brakes, but I know that's a lot. That's a difficult thing to do on a coach. And you'll find that if it's sitting in a campground, when you do finally go to move that travel trailer, the brakes are going to be grinding and dragging, and just because they sat there and rusted just from sitting.
You access the brakes, then when you store trucks and stuff like that, you go off and they'll just spray the brake clear right on the pad.
Well, I'm sorry.
It's like a brake cleaner or a molly coating, just something that protects the steel from rusting. So they can store trucks for a long time, that's what they'll do.
Oh, okay.
Just kind of spray them down and put them back to the brakes. They'll be a little slippery, but they won't be rusty.
But it doesn't, and as long as you use the right stuff, because any type of petroleum lubricant will actually, if you have a bad grease seal and you get any grease or any petroleum on your brakes, it basically ruins those pads. So whatever they're using is designed to burn off and not. So if you have that available, yeah, that'd be great for you. But just make sure what you're using is designed for that, because spraying lubricant on brake drums or whatever, that's going to ruin your pad. Because what happens is any lubricants that get on a brake pad, even when you clean it off, they've actually absorbed it, and as soon as they heat cycle, all that lubricant comes back out. So if you have a bad grease seal or something on your brakes and you get grease on your brakes, they're done. We can clean them, but as soon as they heat cycle, it just oozes back out. So be careful what you put on. But anything that protect metal would be fine.
With electric brakes there, in order to put that on the part where the magnet drags on there, keep that from rusting, you'd have to pull the tire.
Well, you'd have to pull the wheel.
You have to
and
pull the
drum.
wheel.
Yeah.
Is there any benefit to covering the entire vehicle with one of those, like with cover?
Yes, there is a big benefit, and this is basically what the covers you can buy are. Now these are fairly expensive, but they've got door zippers. They're set up for different size units, and they're functional. You can get in and out of them. But the biggest thing about this cover is it's breathable, and it will not let moisture in, but it will let moisture out. So if you're in a wooded area and something falls and punctures this cover, and now you're getting water on your roof, this will actually breathe and let the moisture back out. If you cover your coach with a vinyl tarp, anything, you go to Home Depot and buy a big tarp and wrap your coach, you can actually create more of a problem than you would by not covering it. Because if for any reason moisture gets in there, you've now trapped that moisture in there, and it will just rot that coach from the inside out. So if you are going to use a tarp or anything to cover your coach, make sure that it is not tight around that coach and there's plenty of airflow around that tarp.
We like a black star is really good, because somebody was saying they could stick to it too, so I don't know.
A good cover like this won't, but a cheaper vinyl cover or something may actually, in the sun and being stuck, can actually stick. But if you're going to put anything like that on your coach, seriously make sure that it's got tons of airflow around it, because it will hold moisture in, and it will basically give you, we've had coaches come in where they've had it covered in a vinyl tarp, and like a branch has punctured the tarp and the roof, and it's gotten moisture in it, and it was rotted in the spring. I mean, everything was it holds all that moisture in. So if you're going to use a vinyl one, just be extremely careful. Like I said, these are pricey, but they're very nice. It'll also keep the exterior condition of your coach in really good shape. You can tell the difference between a unit that's sat out in the sun or in the woods compared to a unit that's been tarped or in a garage. Just the exterior condition is incredible. I mean, they take a lot of wear and tear out in the sun. Put a couple of air conditioners and pipes and things. You put like an air pillow so there's a dome. If these covers you don't need to, But if you're going to tarp it yourself, it's not a bad idea to use the air conditioners and things as an arch, and put something up there just to kind of hold that cover as a dome shape.
What kinds of,
Yeah, things like that. I always tell people pool noodles, those little foam pool noodles, lay them around the sides and then put the cover over it. That way they're keeping it away from the side of the coach. They'll let air up in there too. Anything like that, just to keep the cover off of wrapping tight around that coach.
Has aluminum roof, any issue with contact?
No, shouldn't be. No. Yeah, that should be fine on an aluminum roof because you're not going to get the heat out of it because you got the cover over it, so you should be fine with that. And then there's another problem people have is mice, rodents, squirrels, things like that. Shut your propane off before you store your coach. Squirrels love to chew on rubber propane lines, and if they chew a hole in your line and your tank's on, it's just going to drain your tank out, and you're going to get a real bad smell of propane while it's doing that. We do replace quite a few rubber lines on motorhomes, trailers, all that, especially in wooded areas, because the squirrels love to chew on them. There are products that can go into your coach that help prevent mice and things like that. Anything you can do, people tend to use mothballs. They'll put mothballs around for spiders and try to get mice out and things like that. Just pay attention to what you had, and there are products for that. And then there's also moisture absorbing products, which really came from the boating industry, but these are desiccant and they'll just absorb moisture, so that if you put a couple of these around, they'll help to keep your coach dry in the winter time also. Airflow in a coach is a good thing anytime, but realistically, just pay attention to your coach. Go in it, look at it, look at the roof every once in a while. If you can get up and just peer on the roof, especially in wooded areas, make sure nothing's fallen and punctured the roof, a branch or something, just pay attention. Another question people ask is slide rooms, should they be in or out? Put them in. It just keeps another area away from possibly having leaks. If you do leave it out, that's fine. A lot of them have slide covers on them which protect them and things like that. But there again, if it's out, then just look at these things. Just go out and check your coach over and just keep an eye on it. If you do all this, you don't need your heat on. That's the whole reason you're doing all this.
I know we have a heater underneath.
Yeah, because if you lose power or you lose something, then yeah, you're not going to be there. So doing all this saves it. Yep.
Propane lines, you don't have a lot of those connections right at this line or lines.
Yes. Aluminum foil, and I'll tell you, it usually works. But I've seen squirrels chew right through aluminum, like aluminum tape or just regular aluminum foil. They normally don't like the metallic taste. So if you and barbecue grill, I mean, that's the old trick with barbecue grills too. It's just your line going from your tank to your barbecue grill. It just takes some aluminum foil and punch it over the line. Squirrels, mice, things like that will not like chewing on your aluminum.
It's something that happens a lot. Squirrels and mice chew on propane.
Camper while I'm here.
Yeah.
Sell it there.
Why do they like
Think about that.
No idea. It's something to do with the rubber. Oh, it's a sweet taste. Okay. Yeah, no, they love it. I mean, we replace lines all the time. Okay, let me just check product-wise.
Are those press things there, are those the ones you plug into 110 or anything?
No, these are basically a smell thing. They do sell ones that plug in and have ultrasonic sounds and things like that to try to keep mice and rodents away. Stable is for gasoline, for fuel tanks, generators, things like that.
Okay, sweetie.
You can use it for your lawnmowers,
I
anything.
use it for my lawnmower.
Yeah, and when I talk about generators, as far as winterizing generators and things on RVs, that pretty much goes for if you have a portable generator for your home or anything, same thing. Stable, run it till, like an RV, you can't really run it till it runs out of fuel, but your home generator, shut the fuel off and run it till it runs dry. That way you've gotten the fuel out of that carburetor. If you have a propane generator, which if you're fifth wheel, okay. Propane generators are great because they use a vapor propane, so there's really no fuel in it. So you don't have to worry about carburetors on a propane generator. It's still good to cycle. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there something other than food that will attract rodents to go into the RV that I'm not aware of? Did somebody say they left the Drano and then the next thing they knew they had rats? I don't know, like.
There's not really. They're looking for warmth. So
They're
they're
just looking for a place
Keep it
to.
freezing in there, that won't go.
Yeah. So they're gonna, if they're looking for warmth and they find they can get in your coach, and I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna stop them all if you're really if you're in a wooded area and they think they can get in and get warmth, they'll get in it. And they normally will find your cabinet where your toilet paper is and chew it into a big nest in there, and you find them around. So just going in there again, just paying attention, going into it every once in a while is a good thing.
Yeah, but that inside of the
You can.
You'd be amazed.
You'd be surprised. Yeah. Yeah. So go, and it matters on what you have. But if you go underneath it and look, but if you have a motorhome that has compartments all the way down both sides, I'll guarantee you they can squeeze between the gasket and that door if they really want to. Yeah, some of now that style door not, but on a big motorhome with the big doors, a lot of them aren't super tight. They have wide seals and they can squeeze in. There's a lot of access points. Yes, get under there and stop everything you can find, and you may be able to eliminate the problems. And it matters where it's sitting too. If you're not near an open field where there's mice or in the woods or whatever, next to your house or whatever, you may never have a problem. But some coaches are parked. If you're parking at a farm or something like that, you know that there's a lot of rodents around that area and things. So you really got to pay attention. If it's next to your house and you don't have any problems in your house, you probably won't have any problems in your RV.
You put a rat poisoning or mice poisoning out, make sure you don't have no animals around that's going to eat it too.
Yes.
How to reverse the process of winterizing?
De-winterizing, and that's a good point because you had brought up using your coach on and off through the year. So if you want to go out for say you decide you're going to go out for a weekend and your coach is winterized, and it really varies on what you have coach-wise, but you can de-winterize as simply as hooking water up to the city water connection and flushing water through it until you get clear flow. Now, say you're going somewhere for the weekend that you know you're going to have water hookup, so you don't want to de-winterize your freshwater pump or anything. If you hook up to your city water and run water through and de-flush out everything, flip your water heater back to normal flow, then you can use your coach. But you still have not de-winterized your water pump or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. But de-winterizing is simple as hooking water up. Now, if you want to do your water pump and everything, you need to fill your fresh water tank and run your water pump to push the antifreeze through that. But just run till you get clear water. If you have a filter cartridge or filters, then you're going to need to dump them just to get the excess antifreeze out of that. One thing to do is before you turn your water heater back to normal flow, because you've left it in your bypass mode, you're going to flush the water system clear, then flip it back to normal flow. If you flip it first and turn the water on, whatever antifreeze is left in the system goes right in there. So always flush first and then flip your water heater. We have a problem with that because when we winterize coaches for customers, we normally leave them in a normal flow or a winterized position. And in the spring, we get phone calls saying, I don't have any hot water, and we're like, well, did you turn it back to normal flow? So we struggle with, should we put it in normal flow so they get some antifreeze in it in the spring when they de-winterize, or should we leave it in winterizing and then they don't know what to do in the spring? So it's, you need to leave it in the bypass mode, flush the system, then flip it to normal flow and let it fill up. But just run water through everything until you get clear water and you're de-winterized. That's
And
pretty
then,
much
then
it.
open your low drain valve too and get everything out of there, cause there's always some down in there.
You can just hit your low point drains, open all your faucets, everything. If you're not gonna use something, like if you're gonna go camping and you have a washer dryer or something like that, as long as you don't run it, then you haven't de-winterized it, so you don't have to worry about it. So when you re-winterize, you don't have to worry about doing that. Ice maker, if you do your ice maker and then you go out camping during the winter, when you come back, you don't have to go through the process, because whatever was antifreeze was left in that line and through that valve is gonna stay there, so you can just do the rest of the system and
So
you
now
don't have
when
to
you
mess with it.
de-winterize, is there another place, or you just like literally?
You're on your own for that.
Just look it up?
And just run water through it. Basically, just like you got your camper from new, hook water to it
Oh.
and just run it until you get clear water. Once you get good clear water, flip these two valves back to normal flow and you're done.
And then